Hello and welcome to TWWork, a space where you can hear and read about some amazing people, the fantastic jobs they do and the paths that led them to where they are today.
The treatment is a whole body treatment, so from head to toe, because the lymphatic system, as you know, is made up of vessels that run through your entire body, which basically clear everything in your body. So it goes around all your tissues and it feeds into the lymph nodes, and the lymph nodes are like tiny toilets that flush out pathogens, cancer, bacteria, anything that around the body. And then, of course, most of your lymphatics are packed into your guts. Gut massage was very much normal. You know, you do that every day. You know, like you would clean your teeth. In Asia, you do a gut massage like you would clean your teeth.
Wow.
So that I wanted to bring here because we are so far removed from actually touching any part of ourselves, really. And we're quite reserved as a culture as well. And I think there was not a treatment, there was not a massage related to the gut really at all. And that's when you go to have a massage, that area is ignored. Yeah. So I wanted to do something that included a gut massage, and also it was a very useful tool to assess where and to show the patient where you had got congestion.
He just turned pro, but he'd done one show and finished dead last. Mm-hmm. And again, it was a bit ballsy, and we always talk about it. We're still good friends now. And I said, your posing's shit. Now, to tell a professional bodybuilder that their posing's not the best.
But how did you know? What you just as you just thought it was shit?
Yeah,
or
so I was just looking at his body as a
muscle and that kind of thing.
And going, well, he can't open that shoulder and he can't, he's tight there, and this is this. And if you actually open that up, you'll look bigger and it will improve your muscle and,
of course,
you know, all this.
Yeah.
So basically, we still, to this day, like, we went to Nando's, sat down, as you do.
Ate some protein.
Yeah. And I sat down, I said, look, this is what I think I can do for you. And he said, right, I'm in.
Doors have just opened for you, or you've gone after it more?
I don't think like they just open, but you do have to put yourself in the right position. So like when I came, I had to put myself out there to contact someone, to offer my services for free, in the beginning, to get them what I wanted from that. Then that opened a door. Then the gym opened another door.
Because we're very much in this era, and I do wrong. I sign up to it to an extent, but it's kind of like, you know, what's meant to be will be, and all this kind of stuff. And I kind of think the worrying thing with that is it's not making people get off their arse and go and chase stuff down.
You still have to put yourself out. And you know, if you want to win the lottery, you have to buy a ticket. So put yourself in positions where you may meet these people.
And when I almost got to the end of the list and I was thinking maybe this isn't going to happen, I got this email from a lady in America who said, I love your work, I would like to represent you. And I was just like, oh my God.
Oh my God, America as well.
Yeah, which was very exciting. Turns out she was the agent for lots of really big people in children's book publishing. So I was like, this is very exciting. She was wonderful and very quickly got me a 2-book deal with Bloomsbury. So,
oh my God.
But what happened was that because they didn't sell brilliantly, my agent said to me, actually, I'm going to let you go. So having got this incredible agent who was like, you know...
This was after 4 years then?
This was after 4 or 5 years. As I said, my time scale's not brilliant, but this was not very long ago.
If you work in that department, you have access to every other department that makes the TV shows. The one department actually that does have that. And you're on board from start to finish, whereas everyone else comes in and does their bit and moves on. But in production management, you're there from the very start of development to the very end of sending, you know, delivering the show to the broadcaster. No one else has that. So I think it's actually a really fulfilling job role. I ended up being a production manager, so you ran the shows for a series called Animal Cops. And it was like a franchise series, and we made it for Animal Planet, and it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
So we used to send crews to America, and we used to film in various cities. So I filmed in New York, Houston, LA, Chicago, Phoenix. There were some other cities, but they weren't my shows. And I used to fly out and set up TV shows in my 20s. It was amazing. I honestly think the short form is going to be where it's at.
I know.
I think everything, apart from dramas and
Apart
films,
from drama stuff, yeah.
but everything's going to need to be really snappy. And I also think, you know, before you just made a TV show and you sent it off to the broadcaster and off it went. Even now, we'll make a TV show, but we might also need to do short form content that can go out on YouTube or social media. There's so many more layers to our jobs now that didn't exist before. You know, most TV shows, most big TV shows have social media platforms.
Yeah.
And they need running. So the industry's definitely shifting, but I'm still unsure myself exactly where we're all going to land because it's going to change.
Were you always very spiritual? Are your family spiritual? Where did this come from?
So as a child, I was super sensitive, and I had an imaginary dog called Simon.
Love that
And
name
he used
as
to
well.
live, I know, he was like a retriever. Sometimes he used to live in by the chestnut tree, and always see him there. Because we're seeing the dying of the old, which is patriarchal control, looking for a saviour externally from ourselves.
Yeah.
Really being told what to do and being very controlled, essentially. If you look at the story of Yeshua and Magdalene, or Jesus and Mary Magdalene,
Yeah.
they came in to show us the highest expression of love. That was then twisted, taken apart, and put into patriarchal control.
Yeah.
Control by the church as an entity, and basically moving people away from their own divinity.
Yeah.
What's now happening is this age is beginning to unfold, it's beginning to dissolve in front of our very eyes, and the new energies, the age of Aquarius, is coming in.
Yeah.
So the age of Aquarius is about community, collaboration, it's about working together, it's very much about flat level structures, institutions, banks,
Yeah.
government, legal systems, how they are collapsing. That is a really good way marker of showing how we're transitioning into the turn of the ages as well. And the people, to go right back to the original question, who are really feeling that at the moment are the people who are here to make an impact, the people who are here to make a difference, the people who have suddenly realised that the 9-to-5 grind isn't for them. Fear. I cannot move because I'm so fearful as to where my income comes to allow me to live again.
Because the system is the system.
Because the system is the system. But does the system serve us? Probably not. Can the system change? Yes, it could and can if we make that decision for it to change. But actually, what I encourage people to do is, how can you buck the system? How can you play the system rather than being in the system? Fear, for me, if you break it down and give it an acronym, is false evidence appearing real.
Wow.
So actually, when you are truly honest with yourself and you feel this fear bubbling up, this is when you have to do the inner work. You have to do the shadow, because not only are you moving through your own stuff, you are moving through our ancestors' stuff as well.
Yeah.
Because as we're coming towards the end of an age and the start of a new one, we're just releasing and releasing and releasing.
And then her role became available, which I'd only been in my role for something like 7 or 8 months. But then her boss, who absolutely loved me, said, you know what? You're by no means the finished article to do this job. She said, but I've been doing this for so many years. And she said, I see something in you. She said, you are going to be a superb leader. She said, and it's your confidence, it's your connectivity with people, it's the fact that you know how, she said, your emails. And she talked about how I was always quite articulate. She said, I will put you in this role. She said, but I'm absolutely going to coach the shit out of you. She said, we're going to have some really uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah.
She said, I'm going to be constantly speaking to your team about what you need to do better. She said, I've spoken to them. She said, and actually in 8 months, although they don't think you're the finished article, they really like you. They think that you get the best out of them. There's been a massive change in culture since you started. So they backed me. And another fantastic woman that put her hand. I always seem to have this connection with women. It was always women that sponsored me, not men. It was women in positions that sponsored me. Probably because I'd been indoctrinated in that as a child. So I got on really well with women. We had great fun. You know, there was a real kind of trust thing going on. So my sponsors mainly, and there have been some exceptions, were mainly women in work. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. And I know that I was always meant to make a difference for the benefit of other people, and that I had the tenacity, the voice, the confidence to stand up and be counted, to call the stuff out in organisations that shouldn't be going on.
Stop working for women. You know,
but they were
it was
really
a bit Wolf of Wall Street at times.
So how many women were doing what you were doing?
Just me. in this area.
Wow.
For the entirety of my career, pretty much. I was.
So you were literally a lone woman.
And that's not unusual. Within the industry, out of all of the chartered financial professionals, whether they're planners, advisors, wealth managers or whatever, 85% are still men. The gender pay gap is nearly 25% in financial services. So a man doing that job, 25% more than a woman doing that job, and we've still got this to fight against. I am still a chartered wealth manager.
Yeah, okay.
And I will help people with their strategy. Absolutely. And I would do all of the things up to the line.
Yeah.
But I want to be there for all of the conversations that they don't have with their wealth manager.
Right.
The ones that they're afraid to have. I want to have the more honest conversations before they press the button to invest.
Okay. And then do you then refer people on?
If they need referral, they get referral. And I will match them up with the right person.
You figure out with your really unique style what it is people need to do with their money.
And
then
sometimes you can do that yourself. You know, if you can do that yourself, I will happily guide you through it.
Yeah.
I will show you what the pitfalls are, what the risks are, what to look out for so that you don't get scammed, all of that sort of stuff.
From the framers, I decided that this job came up as a makeup artist, and I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to go for that.
And where had you seen it?
In the Leicester Mercury, quite possibly.
Yeah.
And because I'd done photography, I did a lot of before and afters of my own.
Yes, okay.
So somebody would come and
you always had a bit of a portfolio.
A little one. It was a bit shit, but it was. You could see that I could do makeup. Put it that way. And I remember going and saying, "Oh yeah, I'm a makeup artist." Blah blah blah. So I'd literally blagged my way into that job.
I love that.
And they hired me. You know, that's where the skill is. I can knock 10 years off somebody.
Yeah.
And it's only makeup and it can be washed off and you go back to how you were before.
Yeah.
That's the key. The makeup is the joy. It's not forever.
It's how it makes you feel though. So you do 1 day a week with Spanners with Manners then? And is it women bringing cars in, or do men use
all mixed,
Oh, okay.
all mixed,
so it really is, because I wasn't sure about that. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
I know
just the female team working.
Yes, yeah. But guys bring their cars in.
Yeah. And they sometimes, like, when they come in, they're like, oh. But it says it outside, so they know.
Yeah.
But I guess it's like...
Do you think how many people come in do they think it's like a novelty thing? Or because I think for a lot of guys, and maybe it's an age thing, to even trust a female garage, they'd be like, I'm not taking my car there.
Like that, yeah.
I'm not taking my car there. They wouldn't know what the fuck, they won't know what they're doing. I think women generally, so showing up online is scary. It's daunting, isn't it? Because you don't want to get...
the comments I get.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I get told, go back in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Has she been blonde her whole life? What's she talking about? Do you know what my reply is? Your mum.
Yeah.
I was like, what, like your mum? Like your mum?
Yeah.
And I'm like, and then I remember one was like, why are you being so rude? I was like, but it's fine for people to be rude to me.
Yeah.
Like, would you say that to your mum?
Yeah.
And then what's amazing is that rather than your period being a pain, it's actually this window into all this data and information about your health that you can do yourself.
That's like you are describing the most ultimate reframing exercise known to womankind.
Absolutely.
I mean, that is you're on a mission with that, because let's face it, everyone sees their period as such a
Yes, we're so unlucky. I mean, my granny used to call it the curse.
Yes.
And I think, that is exactly how we all see it as women. We are cursed. We have to have this for all our lives.
Yeah.
But actually, I now see it as something which we can really harness to use to our own strength. We're really let down by healthcare because there's this whole public health message around nutrition, the way we should be eating. But what they're not telling us is that as women, your nutritional needs change greatly throughout different phases of your life. Puberty,
and throughout the month,
fertility, fertility, postnatal, then perimenopause, then postmenopause. All those different times your needs change, and so often women will come to me and say, well, I haven't changed anything, but it's just everything's, I'm feeling awful, like I'm gaining weight, and I'm not changing anything. And it's like, because your body is changing, like the chemicals within you are changing.
And we sort of carved out a remit, first time that it's ever been done in Olympic Games. We carved out this remit and this role and team to design and deliver the Olympic Games for the ticket holder. And as it turned out, I then sort of went and land grabbed and designed the experience for the non-ticket holders, so people who wanted to be at the games but didn't necessarily have a sport ticket. Which meant looking at all the stuff in London and around the nations and regions and all that sort of stuff. And I hasten to add, as I say this, I was linking in with many, many brilliant people within the organising committee who had different pockets of that, but I then sort of spent the next 3.5 years knitting it all together and designing it as a sort of a holistic programme. Literally, as I was on the call to Anthony going, had this idea for a Harry Potter light trail based in a forest called Forbidden Forest, realise it's a long shot and it's never going to happen. What do you think? Pretty much instantly, because it was in the afternoon and he was in LA, with the message, you're right, never going to happen. When I'm coming back to London, let's go for a drink. And that was it. And I was like, 24 hours later, I get another message from him saying, we love this idea. Do you fancy doing it together? Can we be business partners? And you do not say no to that.
I was rugby from 27 to 40. I arrived with Mary, brand newly married, age 27, and we left 13 years later with 4 children for my first headship. So it's a big chunk of my life. Lots of wonderful things. Few things I probably didn't get right, but again, as part of my growing up as a human being, as a husband, as a dad, as a teacher, all those things, it was huge, and I will always feel very fondly towards rugby, and that's part of our pastoral system here as well. All societies have had a kind of mentor apprenticeship, whatever you want to call it, the growing up in a village, which is well known. And we don't have such rich villages anymore. That's why a great independent school like Oakham is fantastic, because that does create more of a village. Those great HMs, those great tutors, all sorts of staff that are other positive voices in people's lives. Doesn't mean that teenagers don't want their parents or aren't listening to them. Of course they are. But particularly through that kind of year 9, 10, 11 tunnel, they're the voices of their peers, the way they're growing into themselves, the things that are interesting them. They're so trying out the clothes that they're wearing. It goes back to the question you said a while ago about this education being a gift and a responsibility. Wear it responsibly as you go as well. And modesty, you can be too modest and falsely modest. I'm not encouraging that. I think you should be aspirational. I think ambition is not a bad thing. It can be a pejorative word, but it doesn't need to be. One okay is to be aspirational, ambitious, but with a good hint of modesty and groundedness and good sense and awareness of others.
Basically, I started as a sales coordinator, really got my hands dirty, and I was so interested in process. So if somebody was like, had sort of recurring shipping problems, I wouldn't just be answering the problem. I would always take a higher view and be like, what is causing this? And so that was a natural tendency for me to try to understand end to end, problem solve, exactly. And so I got promoted once a year for 5 years.
And you were like 19, 20?
Yeah, early 20s. I got paid really well for that, and I had to wear a lab coat and a hairnet, and I had like a Bunsen burner and like measuring equipment, and I basically had to boil down the tap water to
one at a time.
Yeah, each sample, and then kind of be quite fastidious about recording the samples and the labels.
Oh my gosh.
And when you boil down tap water, you get left with the mineral residue.
Yeah.
And then I had to weigh it. And that was my job.
So I went to this conference, and a guy called Jack Pierpont, who was one of the pioneers, was at this conference, and he agreed to, for anybody who was interested and wanted to stay behind, to train them in how to use this particular tool.
Wow.
So me and another person stayed behind, and Jack Pierpont, who was this pioneer, trained me how to use this particular method, which uses drawing to create a big picture, really, of somebody's needs and wants.
And their circumstances.
And then looks at how you might get them to where they want to be.
Right.
And people wanted to be creative. People wanted their meetings to stand out, and they wanted their work to be different. And so I got quite early on, after only a few months, some big clients like Google and Microsoft and Time Warner.
Suddenly dropped that in. How did you get them?
They just emailed me and said, will you come and do this thing? And so I had a big piece of paper up on the wall. Cool, and my task was to talk to the young people, find out what they thought, and draw it. So I did that. So that was 3 kind of different ways of working very quickly.
You drew it there and then?
Yes. So it's very much live drawing is what I do mainly.
Yeah.
And so I'd done facilitating using visual tools that I'd created. I'd done graphic recording, which is drawing while people are talking, and some graphic illustration, which is taking like people's content and turning it into a picture.
If you would like to hear more about this chat, see some pics and read about how to get started in this industry and or this role, then please go to our website www.TWWork.org. The link is in this podcast page and across our socials. Sincere thanks.